This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
To our panel, doesn't matter who wants to go first, you've got your mic, just when you turn it on, wait a second or two for it to go live. Our first question is, what inspired you to give service on this panel or to become involved in writing the book? I know some of you can answer it either way, but it's about this. Hit it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just start because the microphone is right next to me. And before CoDA, I hated talking to anybody about anything about me because I thought I was worthless and, all the things that I just didn't want anybody to get to know me. And I would say not only being in CoDA, but also working on the literature committee. It's really only been 20 years, so it hasn't really been forever, but it's been a very long time. In the beginning, I just didn't really do a whole lot. But the last few years, I've gotten involved in quite a few different writing projects more intensively. I want to just talk a little bit about the book, CoDA, Growing Up in CoDA, just to kind of give you a little bit of background about it. So, as David mentioned earlier, in our basic text, Codependents Anonymous, there's a little bit of information in there about inner child. And from what I remember, since I've been in CoDA, not quite that long, but 32 years or so, what I remember from the very early days is that inner child work was something that people talked about, and there were workshops about it. And when I joined the literature committee. Oh, but then I want to just say this one thing about that. People walked around with teddy bears, and I thought it was freaking weird. I was like, no, that's not my idea of an inner child. But, I came to accept that everybody's different, and you have a beautiful teddy bear, Terry. But anyway, I just wanted to say, give a shout out to people that aren't like fans of a teddy bear. It's okay. You can still do inner child work without carrying a teddy bear around. But anyway, so the basic idea of inner child, inner person, who went through all that trauma and all the dysfunction that many of us experienced in our families of origin, or wherever we experienced it when we were young. That's been around since the beginning of CoDA, and I'm curious to hear what other people might think about this. But I feel like ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, they took it and ran with it. And in CoDA, there was a lot of no, that's not a part of our program. So, but anyway, so then. I think in around 2013, 2014-ish, somebody wrote a couple of paragraphs and sent them to the CoDA Literature Committee about reparenting, and we looked at it and we went, that's interesting. Nobody really knew much about it at that point, or some did, some didn't. And so then we started looking around the fellowship to see if we could find any literature that might help us write something more, because a couple paragraphs is not much, and we already had a few paragraphs in our original book. So anyway, I could talk about this forever, and I won't bore you with it. But basically, what we found was there wasn't anything that was within the fellowship that we could really use. So then it's like, oh crap, now we have to write it ourselves. I was not involved in the very beginning. It took about 7 years, I think, to write this and bring it to conference last year to get it endorsed. I would say 7 or 8 people worked on it. One person in particular was really passionate about getting this book worked on and done. Yes, her name was Michelle. And for me, I got involved at a certain point when I was shown a couple of paragraphs, and this is no offense to anybody that did the work. I'm like, well, this really needs to be edited. So I jumped in, and then for about 2 years worked on the book with other people, and it was a totally mind-blowing experience because I felt like I don't know any of this stuff, but I did actually know a lot of it because having been in an alcoholic crazy town family growing up, I could really relate to the dysfunctional parts. And I really like that there's a chapter in here about child development, because I always guessed at what normal was. I didn't know. I had no clue. So I think that's a really good chapter. And what was the other thing I wanted to say about this? Oh, just that there were a few moments during the writing of this that we had little family dramas going on. I'm not going to lie about that. Like, I got piled on and at one point, and I just said, no, we're doing it the way I want it to be. So, it was like, then you have to sit back and go, oh, okay, group conscience, we got to figure this out. So I really didn't think I knew anything about reparenting or inner child much, but in working on this book, I discovered I knew a lot more than I thought I did. And I think with that I'll pass, because I'll talk more later. I don't want to go on and on and on. I really could easily, but I'll stop. So thank you. Do you want to go? Okay.
Go to David.
Okay, well, one of you take it.
Thank you, Terry. My name is David Mick from Fort Worth, Texas. I'm a delegate. This is interesting because I used to be on the literature committee. In fact, Terry and I were on it together for a few years, and then I got busy in work. I'm a therapist, and I was just working long hours, and so I got off of the committee. And but I'm so glad, because last year I was an alternate, and when the packet came with the draft of this, and I read it, awesome job. Because I was involved, this is how I got involved in service work to begin with. I'd been in service work in my home group, and I don't know how long I'd been in recovery, 10 years or whatever, before I got into the state stuff, whatever. But we're sitting in a meeting one day. I have the original hardback CoDA book. And I was in the chapter 5, and I said to people, turn to this page, and we were going to look at stuff. I don't remember about boundaries or whatever it was, or child stuff. But people turned to that page, and it was gone. That information was not in there that was in the original CoDA book. And I'm like, damn, what is this about? And so I wanted to find out more. And so from a group, we drove down. We were having the state convention. It's either Austin or San Antonio, a long drive in the rain. We got there. I was just wanting to ask, what do y'all know about this? Well, they're electing delegates. Okay, so I was the number 7 alternate delegate. Number 7. Well, apparently one of the delegates wasn't able to go, so they went through the first 6 alternates, and they got to me. I said, yeah, I can do it. So I became a delegate, and I said, this is what I would like to take to the service conference. I want to put this information back in this book. And so Texas, now that might have been my second year as a delegate when we actually did it as a motion. But we got the motion passed. And had gotten onto the literature committee by then. And so I was, there was a group of us working on this. We even had a face-to-face at one point, somewhere in New England or wherever. But we got this information about the child, the inner child, and I have a lot of training in that. In some other workshops this week, I've shared that in the 80s, my therapy was in what's called transactional analysis, which is where the idea of the child part, the adult part, and the parent part comes from. Well, my first therapist, that's what he practiced. And then I went and spent a month in California with Bob and Mary Goulding, who combined transactional analysis with Gestalt therapy. And so, I had a lot of training in it anyway. So I knew about the child. I knew about the parent part. And as I shared earlier, I realized I needed to do some more work on me. I'd hit some emotional bottoms, and I got into 12-step work. Because I'd learned a lot of good stuff, but I needed a consistent spiritual relationship. And when I got into 12-step recovery, that's when that consistent relationship began. Not, once a week or twice a week or whatever, or once a month, but consistent. So that's what led me into the recovery and doing the work. And then I shared about how I reparented myself. Did a lot of work on that. So I know about it, and I think it's good that I wasn't on the literature committee. Now, I'm serious when I say that, when y'all started this project, because I think the discovery that people got to do was great. So anyway, if y'all hadn't read this book, get it, use it. There's so much good stuff. Here, James.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. My name is James, and I'm codependent. And I want to thank Canada for having us. I love Canada. I just love the place, the people, the air, the buildings, everything. I want to set the record straight. I had nothing to do with the writing of this book. And it's true. And a friend of mine told me it was coming out, and then I got the draft edition, and I used it with all my step studies and everybody I met and talked to, and I wrapped my life around this book. I just loved it. And the first question was how I got into service. And the fact of the matter is that my journey in service, I figured out why I'm so steeped in service from this book. Because I was raised in a union household, and they told me if I didn't suit up and show up and do what my duty was, that I would be taken advantage of. And when I got to CoDA, I thought if I didn't suit up and show up and do my part, there would be no CoDA. So that's why I was drawn to service. It has nothing to do with the book, but I learned it from reading the book, and I learned so much. And that's all I wanted to add this time. But I've got a lot of comments coming up.
Thank you all. Thank you all. So question 2, what is the inner child to you? What does it mean to reparent yourself? You want to continue since you have your thoughts ready?
Thank you. I've got a friend of mine at Wildwood, and she is the inner child queen, and she's been working on me and inner child for years, and I just never could get it until I saw it in print. And when I saw the book, it didn't give me answers. It gave me a lot of questions. And I started going back and opening the doors that I had shut as I grew through all the periods that they mentioned in the book. And that's what triggered my mind to go back and look. And I realized that I didn't have a bad childhood. I was raised in a typical household. And for some reason, I wanted to leave home at 18. And I got married. And my wife abused me for the next 50 years. And I found out that was my problem. But the book taught me to go back in the stages of my life and look at it. And I never got that input from CoDA before. And I've been very successful in my recovery. I've found serenity and peace. But this brought me even more. It made it deeper, and it made it more clear. And recovery is about peeling the onion, and that's what I've been doing. I'll pass.
So I wrote some notes. And it was a couple weeks ago, so let's see if it still makes sense. I defined I had never really thought about how do I define my inner child. I mean, I feel like I have a connection with my inner child, but I didn't really think about a definition, so here it goes. I define my inner child as the part of me who remembers my earliest years, knows what happened when I was young, and is a deep reservoir of unresolved feelings. The part of me who is childlike, in the moment, curious, spontaneous, intuitive, loving, creative, willful, stubborn, sometimes spiteful, confused, hurt, angry, or full of rage. And I will say, it was being full of rage that brought me into CoDA. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't even know I was angry. Well, I knew I was angry when I was full of rage, but I couldn't identify when I was actually angry before I flew into a rage. But anyway, and reparenting means respecting and honoring my inner child while gently steering to get my adult needs and wants met in healthy ways. Reparenting means developing trust in myself and my higher power.
I was trying to find it in chapter 5 on my phone, but I couldn't. That section on what is the child within. But to me, the inner child, that's the original me. That's who I was created to be. It's the essence of me. And it's that part of me that is curious, that is creative, that has feelings, that can be, I'm joyful, like to have fun, discover. It's the original part of the original essence of me. Now, it's also that part of me that can be rebellious, vengeful. There's a part called the creative, inventive little professor. And that's the part that can be manipulative, because it's being creative, but it's being manipulative. So there's these different parts of the inner child. And but mainly it's that original loving and lovable part of me. And the reparenting is learning how to nurture myself as a healthy, loving parent would. And basically, it's also having that relationship with my higher power, who I know loves me, period, unconditionally. I don't have to do anything or not do anything, be anything or not be anything. I am not separate from my higher power. And so when I remember, I am always okay. Sometimes I don't remember that. So the reparenting part is that loving, nurturing, taking care of my little kid. Thank you.
Thank you all. That was wonderful. I'm hoping on your playful notes that if you're feeling curious about something when they're talking, that you write it down, because I forget when I walk into another room, right? So jot it down, so when it's your turn, you have that thought ready for us. Question 3. What was the first step you took when beginning your inner child or reparenting work? Because I know many people like me have been resistant. I shared that with you all. And so this was like a higher power moment when I got put on this panel, because then I had to start reading it. So what was your first step?
Well, obviously, I went to a therapist. I was at an emotional bottom, and my brother knew someone who did some work with a therapist, and that's where I went. So that was the first step. I knew nothing about reparenting or inner child, any of that stuff, but I just needed some help. So that was the first step, and I think that's the thing in any kind of make a change or learning something is realizing, okay, I don't know. So what do I do to find out? I seek. Like I said, that child part of me, I like to discover. I'm curious. So I went for some help. So that's the part of the question about to do the inner child work, and also with that therapist, I also started group therapy, and I was the only guy in that group. It was all women. And then at the end of the group, they wanted to hug. And I'm like, the only women I hug would be my mom or my sisters or grandmother, But hugging, in my mind at that time, it would have been like it might be a sexual thing. So but I learned from these women, no, you can hug and it's not a sexual thing. And we all need that nurturing. And so it was touching that inner child in me, and I was learning how to receive in a different way. So that was another big awakening for me. And from these people, they also were nurturing me. They were reparenting me before I even started doing it to myself.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. I have no clinical background, and I just started out with this book. And what the inner child it was hard for me and I really worked on it with my close CoDA friends, and I knew it was important, but I just I couldn't get it until I saw it in print. That is when I came out, as soon as the book came out, I read it, and it had been rearranged a little bit, but it was the same as the draft copy. But this inner child work it was always very difficult for me. And now, since I've got the book and I've started going through it, and that's what I meant about I wrapped my life around it, because I saw so many things in this book that triggered thoughts of my youth and when I was little, and told me, I looked at the pictures, and my sister died during this time, and all the pictures came out, and it triggered a lot of stuff in my life, and I'm starting to do this work that I just could never do before, and I think it's a very important book for CoDA, because there's a lot of people out there. I know I'm not alone in this journey, so that's my answer to that question.
So I had to think about this. I feel like my first inkling about inner child work was actually before I came into CoDA. I don't remember if I started the therapy first or anyway, I went to adult children and alcoholics meetings, and they scared the crap out of me, because I realized later there was a lot of inappropriate, like really over the top sharing. But I had read the book, and I thought, well, this is me, the COA. And then, I was in treatment at a local alcohol and substance abuse center, which I met some really great people. One of the therapists is still a good friend of mine. We're Facebook friends. Anyway. But what was really great about it was that I felt like I was heard, and that somebody really cared about me, and was really interested in hearing what I had to say about the stuff that I never ever talked about, or even kind of like didn't even feel like, did that really happen? And where my pain and my frustration and whatever stuff came out, and it was okay to talk about it. That was a totally different experience for me. And then the other thing that they did, in this group that I was in, we did these, I forget what they're called, but you David probably knows what it's called, doesn't matter. But anyway, you get 4 or 5 people, however many people are in your family of origin, and you set up like these, they're like statues, like about the family dynamics. And I just cried like a baby to do that. It was just like, yeah, that's really it. So anyway, that was an opening, but I didn't really pursue it other than reading, books outside of recovery. And then getting into CoDA, there was a little bit of it, but really not that much. So I guess I would say, wait, there's something else I wanted to say here, maybe. So in recovery, I did a lot of connecting with myself as a young child and a teenager without realizing it was really inner child work. And that's due to my sponsor, who's like amazing. And we did a lot of stuff together. We talked a lot about a lot of this stuff together. And I've connected with my inner child through exploring childhood and teenage memories, trauma, stuck pain, and just other feelings like excitement, appreciation, and joy. It's like now I'll go, oh, I really want to go to that movie. Why? Because my 10-year-old self would have really loved to go to that movie. Things like that. Just these things come to me. And so now I just feel like I have this connection. And it's great. Pass. I can't remember.
Thank you all for your shares. You touched a little bit on question 4, so it might be an elaboration or pivoting or growing. How has inner child or reparenting work been part of your recovery? So you took that first step. How has it been part of your recovery?
Okay. I wrote some stuff down, so I'll see. I think it's relevant. So, over the many years of recovery, writing, prayer and meditation, and sharing step work with my sponsor, I kind of talked a little bit about that. We shared a lot about self-love and gentleness, and how CoDA is really a program of becoming gentle with myself, because I've been super harsh and mean and judgmental towards myself and my inner child. And we shared a lot about finding emotional maturity and maybe even emotional sobriety, which, by the way, the original title of this book was Growing Up in CoDA, Becoming Emotionally Mature. But for whatever reason, we did so many group consciences and then came back to just Growing Up in CoDA. So there's a lot of stuff about emotional maturity in the book as well. So I've gradually found ways to be comfortable with myself and others through a nurturing relationship with my higher power, for sure. And gradually found ways to be comfortable with myself and others. Oh, I wrote it twice. It was really important. The other thing, there was something else I wanted to say about this, which is, I feel like, for me anyway, the most important part is the reparenting part, and the inner child grew, my contact with my inner child grew from that. So I guess that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
I'm just beginning my journey in inner child work. And how could I start my work if I don't know who that little boy was? And through reading the book, I'm beginning to go back and find him. And I read something somewhere that said that my inner child would be buried alive until I went back and found him. So in my imagination, I go back in the shed, get the shovel, dig them up, dust them off, and then start working with them. And that's the point of my recovery that I'm at. I was a man, I worked hard all my life, and there was nothing childlike about it. But now I'm starting to see why I have to go back and find them and dig them up, dust them off, and start to have a relationship with them. And that is confusing to me. And I don't understand it. But I understand, because of the book, how important that is to my recovery. So that's, I might be shallow and I don't know as much, but I wanted to do this panel because I thought it was important from the viewpoint of a person that doesn't, I have no experience in inner child, but I understand how important it is. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you.
So, to me, reparenting / inner child work, they're hand in hand. Now, obviously, when I first got into therapy, I was doing a lot of inner child work. I call it FOOI. Oh, FOOI. Now, that stands for FOOI. O, Family of Origin Issues. So I was doing a lot of family of origin issues, working through lots of trauma and so forth. So just allowing myself to feel my feelings that I had stuffed and buried for so many, many years. That was the inner child work, and that's just part of me growing and evolving as a human. And then when I started focusing more on the inner child work, on the reparenting, realizing this is what my kid needs from me. And some of y'all heard me share that I made a decision to do this reparenting for a year. And I began writing all these affirmations and permissions, and I'd do it 3 times a day for a year, nonstop. And then after a year, I said, "Wow!" So I did it for another year. I said, "Wow!" Then I did it for another year, and I said, "Wow!" Every day. Now I didn't just quit then, but I continued doing the work. So and it made such a difference in my life, and in knowing I'm loved, I am lovable. So that's, and from there I've had the chance to blossom as a person. I continue to, as I get older, to do more things. to be of service. I didn't even know I was going to, what this panel was about when I volunteered. The thing said, would you be willing to be on a panel? I go, sure, why not? I mean, I believe in doing service work, whether it's in CoDA, I do Meals on Wheels. I'm this, for our spiritual center, I'm the treasurer. I believe in service work. So, and I think, the Great Spirit had ideas. Everything's in divine order.
Thank you all. Question 5. Was there a part of the Growing Up in CoDA book that assisted you in your recovery? I see some of you got some bookmarks happening, your book's already open, you can see my bookmarks up there. So if someone was buying this book today, we have them available outside, what helped you the most? Anyone go first?
Well, I can go really short. I don't know that I really have a favorite chapter, but one of the things that I worked on was the chapter on the steps and bringing inner child work into the steps. That was really cool for me. I'm trying to think. There was another one I was going to talk about. I guess I talked about it earlier. The one about the chapter about that has the developmental milestones in it. I thought that was really a challenge to make it not sound like a textbook, guys. Really, to put it in that CoDA voice. So I'm pretty happy about how that came out. So I mean, I know I have a completely different perspective on this book than other people do, but it's been over a year now. So now I can look at it like it's a book, not like part of my hand or something. So, okay. So with that, I'll pass.
Sure. My name is James, and I'm a codependent. I kept going back, and I kept going over and over and over it, but not completing it. I kept reading it and reading it and reading it, and I didn't even realize I hadn't gotten to the steps yet, and you do such a beautiful job on the steps. When I finally got that far into the book, and I started seeing how all the work was integrated into the steps, I really appreciated that. And just to drop back a little bit, for me, inner child work is very confusing. I start writing to my inner child, and then I don't think this is in the book, but then some of the workshops I go to, they tell me to write a letter to myself from my inner child. And this all gets very confusing to me. And I have a son, and it gets all mixed up in my mind. So this takes a lot of diligence and a lot of work, but it's worth it. And it piqued my interest enough to keep going back and trying and trying and trying. You can see that I got a lot of Post-it notes on it, and I've been working on it for a while, and I do workshops, and I listen to people, and like I said, I work a lot online with anybody that wants to work. But it's confusing, it's hard, but it's worth it. And I'll pass.
Actually, I'm not remembering it. I think it's somewhere in here, or it's maybe some other literature. But when we talk about boundary violations, whether it's a mental, emotional, physical, sexual, or spiritual boundary violation, any boundary violation is a spiritual boundary violation. Because the spirit of who I am, of who I was created to be, is being stomped on, shamed, violated. And that to me is such an important point for me or anyone to realize that, okay, this is my essence is somehow being abused. No. And when I do it to myself, it's like, because I believe I am one with God, one with spirit, whatever you want to call it. I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand God. So when I'm demeaning myself, I'm also demeaning my higher power, because I am not separate from my higher power. And I am not turning my life over because I believe my higher power loves me, period. So that's how I look at it. Thanks.
Thank you all. I know we got a live mic up there. So now it's time for questions from the room. This panel is supposed to go till 4:30. Look at that timing, exactly half. So if you have a question, please wave me over. I will bring the mic to you so you can ask it. And supposedly, if nobody has questions, I'm supposed to wing it and just throw out 45 minutes of questions. But it's okay, because they're like, you got it, you got it. But I do have a question, actually, so I'll kick us off, okay? So we talked about working the steps from the book. So I'm like currently in a traditional step study, I guess. I'm not looking at inner child work. Does the book guide us through like inner child work reparenting steps specifically? Could anyone elaborate on that? Like, it sounds like it's an additional tool. That's what I'm hearing. Can anyone please elaborate? Don't forget to grab the mic.
Well, that's really a great question. I don't know how well I can actually answer it, and I feel like I should because, when we wrote this book, or, the book in total is meant to be, it doesn't really matter exactly when you pick it up and work on it, but it was meant to be something to use after going through the 12 steps and 12 or whatever through the 12 steps, and but particularly working through Codependence Anonymous, our basic text. There definitely, I know I said, oh, it's my favorite chapter. Do I remember what's in it? No, because but I think it's kind of integrated a bit. I think, how we are in our program, you go through the steps however many times you need to go through the steps, like over and over and over again. So hopefully this could add something to that. I think there could be more. I don't see this as the end product. This is like the beginning. This is like what we know, what some people in the fellowship know right now about reparenting and inner child stuff. I'm hoping there'll be more literature in the future. Does that answer your question?
Great. Do either of you have anything to add?
Well, and I agree what Terry just said about working the steps more than one time. And again, this is a wonderful tool. And if a person isn't here yet, that's okay. We're all on a different place on this journey. And sometimes I had an attorney who I sponsored many years ago say, don't be a sponsor for legal reasons. So I didn't sponsor anymore. But he said, since I'm going to say I'm your attorney, so I couldn't use anything against you because it's privileged communication. So the thing is, and I kind of digress, but with working the steps, the first, I think, 3 times I did them, I was so focused on the trauma of my childhood and the mistakes I had made. And, I used to say my life was shit as a kid. But then one day I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm thinking about what's shit? What's it used for? Manure. Manure is used for growth. So I started shifting my negative thinking to a more positive way of looking at it. And so to me, this is a tool to help shift. Yes, I need to own what I experienced, yet at the same time recognize what I experience is not who I am. It's an experience. And this, to me, helps because with the nurturing, loving parent work, a healthy parent says, maybe you made a mistake, but you're not a mistake. It's okay to fail. That's one of my permissions. It's okay to fail. And so that's why this book is, I was so amazed last year when I read the draft of it and like, wow, this is so great. And so it will help do the steps. And the 4th time I did a 4th step, I made a decision to focus only, because the way I did them was every year of my life, I focused only on the positive things that happened during that year. My perspective changed so much because I was no longer focused on all the trauma stuff. And I was like, oh, it was better than I thought. So this is another tool for being, to me, solution-focused, instead of being stuck in the problem, to be in solution. Thank you.
A question? Step 5 reads, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, enforced overly or subtly by our caregivers. These rules were meant to protect family dysfunction, perpetrators, secrets, and shame. Now we are invited to share our truth and the real key to freedom. Hand in hand with our child within, we give ourselves permission to feel and identify our long-buried feelings. Setting aside fear and shame, we bravely share our 5th step in the 3 stages. I just read that to give you an idea of how we integrate the inner child work with the steps, and it does. I'll pass. If I could, I'd like to mention a little bit about the imagery on the front of the book. I thought it was so creative. The bottom hand is the hand of our Creator, and he always has, we always are settled into the hands of a loving God. And the upper hand is our ego and our worldly intentions. And what it doesn't show is the weeds, and that is our codependence. And sometimes those weeds go down and get meshed up with the roots, and that's called enmeshment. I wanted to call that out. Thank you.
That's very cool.
Both of those analogies are wonderful. Thank you for the fertilizer and the mind shift. Because I do think, this morning in the opening, remember how we took a thought, the negative side of it, and we reframed it for us. Okay? Yes, and I came here for this question, and then you have a question in a moment? Okay, we're going to pass here first.
Thanks to all of you. My question is, I know that working the steps is a way to keep emotional and spiritual fitness, and over time, there's recovery. And it's all of the steps and tools are all about being in the solution, and that helps the inner child in the long run. My question is, what do you do when at times your inner child is like, I don't have the emotional energy to be in the solution? When your inner child is saying, I don't have the emotional energy to be in the solution, just taking up so much energy that you don't have the energy to be the adult in your own head space room. My first thought is maybe journaling is just the best thing, to just like let it out, and the adult come later. But apart from that, I was wondering if you had like a pet phrase or something, or because it's easy to slip to self-pity about why do I even have to do this? Why do I have to do this by myself?
So it's okay to rest. You don't have to work all the time. I don't have to work all the time. I got fired by a therapist one time. It was in alcohol services, because he said to me, "You're working too hard. You need a break." And I just kept wanting to work and work and work. I was like compulsively working. And finally he said, I think I've done all I can for you. And of course I thought, what the heck is wrong with this guy? But then I talked with other people, and they were like, yeah, it's okay to take a break. But if you're talking about like in the moment, if you're in pain, how do I rest? Sorry, I keep saying you. How do I rest in the moment if I'm in pain? Well, sometimes reading, distracting myself, sometimes talking to somebody about what's going on, or, even taking a nap, taking a walk. It's okay to, like, I'm the kind of codependent that I used to be. I mean, I still have it within me. I'm kind of a workaholic. And so I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then like, and if I can learn to rest before I get totally burned out, that's good. Maybe ask somebody for a hug. I don't know. It's just these are the things that are coming to my mind. How about? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to answer help if I can. Part of what I said was you have to find your inner child. And to me, that process is very hard. But then once you find them, then you have to learn to communicate with them and work with them and understand them and hear them. And if they want to take a break, they're going to take a break. Because I know how kids are, they just take a break. So, listen, that's my advice.
So what I was hearing is you're asking about how, if your inner child is tired. So what I would say to my inner child is, it is what Terry said. It's okay to rest. It's okay to take a break. And not only that, it's okay to play. When we were kids in school, at some point during the day, we had what they called recess. So we're learning these things and work and da-da-da-da, and then we got to have recess and go out and play. So going, getting on the swing set, the merry-go-round, whatever is playful for me. And so, even sometimes I'll just look in the mirror and make funny faces. Seriously. Whatever's playful. Singing. So if I'm tired, and then if I really need to rest, maybe I just need to go to bed and sleep. But if I'm just working so much, then it's time for me to take a break and do something that's fun. And it's okay. This program is progress, not perfection. And allowing ourselves. See, to me, the permissions are so important to give ourselves permission. Affirmations are great. And I believe in keep it short, sweet, and simple. Not so, but the permission to accept my affirmation, to believe my affirmation. So, allowing ourselves to rest and have fun.
Just have some comments on that question. So I can totally relate to the inner child being rebellious, courageous, venturesome, but yet so empathetic. Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little louder?
I'll try to turn it off. I can figure it out.
You got a dinosaur over here.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit better.
A little bit better? Yeah, so I can totally relate to the inner child being rebellious, courageous, venturesome, but yet so empathetic because it's the person. It's been rescuing so much as a child that it's totally empathetic. But yet it loves to chase the chaos, fight the fires, and rescue, but yet it can't rescue itself. It doesn't know how to rescue itself. It never had to deal with rescuing itself. It always rescued someone else at a younger age. So that comes into play calming the inner child and sitting in that calmness. But yet the boredom is so fearful. You're afraid to sit in that boredom because the emotions start to come up. How do you deal with those emotions once they start to come up? How do you look them in the face and deal with them? That's a very difficult thing to do. So I've been in relationships where I hop over that fence, even if that barbed wire fence is huge, I still hop over it to get what you heard on the other side due to abandonment issues. And most recently, I left a job that was highly toxic, lots of gaslighting, blame, shame, guilt, games, cognitive dissonance, and push-pull meetings, you're in, you're out. And I finally got the courage, I guess, subconsciously, to sign that other letter of offer. But now this organization I'm in is so large, and with all my meetings, where's my chaos? How am I going to deal with these emotions now of kind of abandonment? Because my meetings aren't there anymore. My chaos is done. My fighting with fires is done. So how do I deal with that emotions, especially at night? During the day I can go for a walk, I can exercise, but at night it illuminates in my head. And I wake up at 4 in the morning and sweat and I go, what did you just do? You left all that chaos. You left what you knew, and now you're in a state of calmness. And dealing with those emotions is very very difficult thing to do. I'm just wondering, how do you deal with those emotions late at night when you're ruminating in your head?
So, something I learned many years ago is that I cannot write as fast as I can think. So sometimes I'd have someone call me and I'd say, okay, I want you to write about this and then get back with me and share what you wrote. Sometimes I would write about something in the third person, not from the I, first person place, but once upon a time, there was this boy, and write about it from the third person because it helps to be more objective that way. And for me, it's more calming. And then I could continue writing if I was this person's friend and they were asking me for some input, in a kind way, what might I say to be beneficial? So those are some things. And so, again, I understand monkey mind. Been there, done that many times. And so sometimes it might be 4 a.m. To slow it down, I write. But I hadn't had to do that in a long time, fortunately. But I've been there, done that, I promise you.
Yeah, I like that idea of writing in the third person. I never thought of that. Well, prayer and meditation help me. I mean, sometimes nothing helps and I just get up. It's very annoying, seriously. But regular prayer and meditation really makes a difference for me, even in the moment. It's not to say that my higher power is necessarily going to take it away, like a magic wand. Oh yeah, I really wanted a magic wand when I first came into recovery. Seriously, I really did. That was an inner child thing. I just realized that. Anyway, yeah, writing and prayer and meditation.
I think you should get yourself a magic wand. Your inner child would really love that. They make them and they make noises. Put it in your Amazon cart.
I found serenity working the steps, and when I found step 3 and actually step 7, when I crossed the bridge, and when I asked my higher power to remove my shortcomings, that's when I really found serenity. So just work the steps, and when you get there, it's just like I asked my mom, how did she know? My dad was the one. She said, when you know, you know. And when you get across that bridge and you find your serenity, you'll know. And that's why we're a spiritual program. And I'll pass.
Thank you. Deborah, so when I first heard of this book, I thought it was for children whose parents did CoDA and raised their kids. And so when my sponsee said we're going to read this book, I go, I don't think it fits. So I'm glad that's not what it was about. And we started reading it together, my sponsee and I love it. And I love that there's a lot of words in it. I don't do well with pithy writing. I'll lose the subtleness or the information between the lines. I like that this just seemed to really spell it out for me. The other thing, last week I had a family issue, and I have a sponsor who has often said to me, when she would have a problem, she would call her sponsor. And finally, I got it, and so I called her because I was having an issue. And she said to me, how would you reparent yourself on this? And it frightened me, stopped me in my tracks, because I have not done the work yet on how to reparent. And it was like, well, it was my mom or my dad back in my head, over punishing me for not a very bad mistake. So, oh gosh, I don't know what my question is.
It's okay, you're sharing your experience, it can help.
So, where did you all start then finding your parent? Let's put it that way, okay? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone want to take this?
I'm not quite sure what your question is, finding what?
Your parents.
Oh, your parents.
Your parent, I think is what I'm hearing. Your gentle, loving recovery parents.
At this stage in my journey with the book, and like I said, I'm still looking for my inner child. I can't reparent him until I find him. So I haven't started my reparenting journey. And I wanted to be perfectly honest, because a lot of these things come in to CoDA, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, I know all about that," but they don't, and they don't get it. There's a lot of people out here that don't get it, and I'm here at the table to tell you, I haven't gotten it yet, and I'm going to keep reading and keep working, and it's a lifetime journey. I'll pass. Thank you.
Well, I want to say it may have been working with my sponsor, who's like the most loving and gentle person that I know. I guess that's my answer. I don't know. It's probably not the only way, but it's been such a long time since we've worked together. The other thing about reparenting is I had a lot of resistance to it because of the idea of, I'm just going to say it, reading adult children of alcoholics literature. It just seems overly complicated to me. That's just me. You know, the critical parent, the loving parent, the who's in the driver's seat. It's like, I'm ADHD at that point. You know, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm bouncing back and forth. And one of the things that I recognize, you were just saying about, having that harsh parental voice in your brain, in your memory, and, just keep coming back and back and back. And I feel like I really had to say no. I guess that's probably the beginning of reparenting. But as David had said earlier, I worked a lot with affirmations and setting intentions, so that's helped too. But I don't. It's not a straight line, but it's there. Thanks. It's a good question. Really good question.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier, when I first was in therapy and went to a therapy group, and those ladies, they were nurturing me. So, they were teaching me things. And so, but there's other ways also. Hold a baby. Any of us that holds a baby will have some feelings. We'll feel some nurturing for that child. That's that parent part of us, that nurturing parent part of us. And I do think sometimes we get hung up on the terminology. So instead of saying my nurturing parent, the nurturing part, the kind part, the loving. So, sometimes we can get hung up, like Terry was just alluding to. I know a lot of this terminology, but it took a long time to figure it out. But the thing is that, so not allowing myself just to be in touch with a part of me that is kind. That's the parent, loving the parent part, as far as I'm concerned. So, but it's a great question.
It is a great question. And thank you so much for your answers. Any more questions? I was hoping, I didn't see any. Oh, you told me to ask it? It means I have to get my eyeballs. Okay. Like, seriously, I gotta go back up to my glasses, people. Marie, did I say it right? Marie D? I lost my voice, so I can't talk on the mic. Well, I hope you feel better soon and you heal. What is your inner child's favorite activity that you brought out into your current life? That's a great question. going first?
I will. Because as a kid, I liked to sing. And I used to sing just driving in the car and whatever. And then my wife was in a choir for a long time. Then about 10 years ago, I got into the choir. And I was enjoying it. And then when I was invited to do the lead on a song, My Sweet Lord, at the Easter service, we are a non-traditional spiritual center. I was like, what? Did I hear that right? And so I did that, but I was so scared. And then I was being invited to do solo performances. I was so scared. So that's 2015. Here it is 9 years later, okay? And it's only been in the last 2.5 years that I haven't been petrified to sing in front of people. But what I needed to do for myself, that child part was afraid, but I kept on stepping into the fear. And I love to sing. And I'm no longer afraid to sing in public. And so I'm doing something from that child part of me. And we sing together. We get to spread joy. That's one of our missions, personal missions, is spreading joy.
Can I answer too?
Yes.
Yes. ABC. Wait a minute. Color. You have the little coloring pages, right? I love to color. And so part of my joy also is creating these. So like tapping into my like fun creative side, making all these things. Puzzles. I love doing puzzles. Swinging. If I'm going for a walk in my neighborhood and the swings are empty and no one else is there so I don't look like creepy, I go on over and swing. And then I get motion sickness 5 seconds later because I'm not 5 years old anymore, I'm almost 50. But I go for it, right? And so, and then I also, my children are older, but I find ways to reparent myself by having fun with them. So like the other day, we added wheels on the bottom of an ottoman, and my kids sat on it, and they looked at me, because we used to do this, and I started pushing them around the house on it. And like, we were just having fun, and it felt so good, and it just filled my spirit. So thank you for letting me have a moment with Sharon too. Back to you.
Well, when I was a kid, I loved to sing. I have not gotten in a choir, but I just find myself singing stupid, silly songs or singing along. And also, I have records and CDs and, music that's downloaded. But whenever I turn any music on, I just love it. And I just really never thought about it as a inner child thing. But there's probably other stuff, but you've made me think. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you. I do what's in my heart. And I bought a bicycle. I like to go downhill real fast. If I walk by swings, I'll get on the swing. Whatever turns me on, and then I get in touch with that inner child. I do. And he's there, and he's always there. And he's mischievous, too. I'll pass.
Mischievous, I love that. Anytime I feel curious, I take a moment to quietly thank my inner child, because the adult version of me likes to bulldoze through things and doesn't pause a lot for curiosity. And so that's my inner child. Who else has another question for us?
I just thought of one other thing. I love children's books, illustrated children's books. Shel Silverstein, love that guy. Anyway, that's just one that I just randomly thought about, but yeah.
I just bought the Giving Tree recently because it's all about giving ourselves away. We don't want to do that. Yeah. So who's up? We got time for one or two more, and we can also end early if we need a nap for our inner child. Let's see if I can hold this right. I know, you got to get it up there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm holding up my courage stick because I'm going to risk asking a question that might rock the boat a bit, but I've been involved with CoDA for about 8 years. I did some ACA meetings last year, couple years ago, and I found, wow, this is what I need. Because at first I thought CoDA is what I need. I mean, I need all of them. I mean, both of them, and I understand that those with addictions need to first start with those 12-step recovery groups. And then there's this rule regulation about anonymity. I'd love to see cross-pollination, because I think once the addiction is dealt with, we have all these, people have all these feelings, they feel all these emotions, that the addiction was used to mask and avoid and all this stuff, but it's like, my understanding is that CoDA is about my relationship with others and developing healthy and loving relationships. And I learned about HCA, it's about my relationship with myself, and they have a laundry list, and I thought, but this is equally important, if not more important, because if I don't have a good, healthy, loving relationship with myself, how can I possibly have one with others? So that should be first. So I would love to see cross-pollination between 12-step groups, that once you've done the first step you need to, first 12-step group you need, be it an addiction, then it's your relationship with yourself and your relationship with CoDA. And it's overwhelming for anybody to begin any 12-step group, let alone start off by saying, but you need this. And so I'd almost like to see a flow chart, and I'm wondering about each of your thoughts, because I love that Terry mentioned ACA, and I thought, I think I'm safe to mention ACA here. So, because I just think that cross-pollination between 12-step groups, rather than this, to me, the strict rule about anonymity is not helping us. And to destigmatize, I don't like the term mental illness, because I don't think it's an illness. I think a lot of it is trauma-based and family of origin stuff. Like, there's so many correlations, and I think the more we can talk about it and share about it, this is how I'm learning, and I trust everyone's benefiting from hearing others' journeys and experiences, and that's where these stories in these books, and I just bought the book because I want to read this new book, but I'm thinking, well, are they reinventing the wheel? Because ACA has a lot of this stuff, so why aren't we working together? So, sorry, I don't have a clear question, but if anything I've said has stirred anything up, I welcome and invite and do that. Thank you.
Well, you can do both programs. To me, I know isn't it weird that we admit powerlessness over others, but I think of I think about creating healthy and loving relationships, going to the traditions. Right at the moment, I forget if it's 3 or 4, but that includes me. It's my relationship with myself, and in fact, when I first came to CoDA, that was what was most important to me. It's like I knew I wasn't treating myself well. My higher power just said, go to CoDA. I'm like, okay, but I think you can do both. I just find that CoDA, for me, is more of a. I love ACOA. I've learned a lot from their literature, but I haven't been to a meeting in a very, very long time because there aren't any around. And anyway, I don't want to talk about that. But many of us go to different programs. I know a lot of people that go to Al-Anon. I went to Al-Anon for many years. I'm really happy that I went there because I learned a lot about the disease of alcoholism, which I don't learn about in CoDA. So I pick and choose whatever you need. That's how I look at it.
Did David want?
Oh, do you want? I'm sorry.
James, you were.
Okay. Oh, arm wrestle. I don't like that. Arm wrestle. Come on.
Put his hand up, and I said,
I'm not about
That's fine.
triangular communication. Just don't forget what you want to say. I want to hear it all.
Yeah, my name's James, and I was raised Catholic. And we were right, and everyone else was wrong. And I left the church, and I realized that when I came to CoDA, that all these other 12-step groups come to us, and we love them until they learn to love themselves. But we have to be open to, because they come with all their baggage. They come with all their stuff, and they might want to speak, and we let them stand up to speak, and they use all their affirmations and all the basis of what they're saying out of that other literature, and we have to keep loving them until they start reading CoDA literature and coming through with it, and it happens. In my experience, it happens. Or, it happens or it doesn't happen, but it usually happens, and they embrace our literature because it's kind, it's gentle, and if they're over their addiction, it works. If they're not over their addiction, they got to go back and do some more work. It's not complicated, but it takes a lot. It's, but not easy, as they say.
I think CoDA is a program of having a relationship with myself and my higher power, and then with others. If I don't love myself, how can I really love another person? I can't give what I don't have. My first 5 years of recovery, I was going to 11 meetings a week, 6 days of CoDA, 2 to 3 SLAA meetings, two Al-Anon meetings, maybe 3 sometimes, and then an open AA meeting. So I was doing, I was a sponge absorbing. And so I think everybody's an individual and gets to do what they think they need to do for them. And I've known people that are in AA and that's all they've ever done is AA, and other groups too, and that's okay. I personally believe that codependency is the root of both the process and the substance addictions. So that's why, I keep coming back because I always learn something, whether it's a newcomer or someone else who's been in for 20 years or, whatever. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you all.
One last question. Okay, I think anyone, okay, we're going to run over here. Or walk slowly because I'm really tired after this speed. Okay, here we go. Remember, hold it up close and talk loud.
I just had one more. How do you calm down your child and not scare the inner child into a place and put the wall? Turns to loneliness and addiction, first place of things. So how do we calm the inner child? That's right. Put up these walls.
Did you hear clearly, David? No. So how do you calm your inner child so your inner child doesn't get scared, frightened, or puts up walls? Excellent closing question.
Thank you.
Imperfectly, first of all. I guess, for me, figuring out how to get my own needs met, and it might be my inner child or it might not be. I don't even really, sometimes, I don't really know. It's kind of mysterious. But I think, it's just important to put myself first. Like, for example, today, this is an inner child thing. I didn't have to be anywhere except here at 3:00, so I took a long walk and a boat ride. I didn't go to any other workshops. And, I'm not sad about that. So, I don't know. It's doing what feels right in the moment may not be like the best quote unquote advice, because I don't know what that is for you or for me in any given moment. But really paying attention to what I really need. And also talking about it, that's important too.
I'm not going to answer that. It's a dark side. It's the dark side of your inner child, and you have to try to figure out how to deal with that. And for every joyful thought and action, there's always an opposite reaction. And how you deal with that, I guess, is a personal issue.
Okay, so if I'm feeling afraid, that's that child part of me feeling afraid. Talking with spirit, praying, meditating, again, doing something that's fun, or just reminding myself that I am creating these thoughts. And these thoughts I am creating, that's how I'm scaring myself. Because I'm telling myself a story, basically, some sort of a story. A lot of times I'm telling myself a story, so I'm making myself feel afraid. Now, obviously, if there's a lion fixing to jump on me, that's just natural to feel afraid. So then there's a song my wife sings sometimes, and a verse in it says, "What would love do now to heal the situation?" So just asking ourselves, what would love or God or whatever you want to call it do now to heal the situation? And you know what? If I'm open to that guidance, I get the guidance. And then a lot of times if we're bumping heads, as you know, we're married, sometimes we bump heads. One of us will say, let's go sing. And we'll go in and turn on our portable Bose system and put some music on, and we'll sing. So something fun is also very beneficial, and we both love to sing. So that's calming for me. Thank you. Good question.
Does anyone from the room have any additional ways that you calm your inner child so we can hear from the room? We'll take these two here. Remember, hold the mic close, hot flash.
Okay. All right. In the middle of the night, if I wake up really anxious, I have started hugging myself, and I don't let go until I feel good again.
So it's not really a middle of the night situation, but sometimes when deep anxiety is persisting, I go to yin yoga. It takes me from a 10 to a 2. It's very trauma sensitive, and that works for me.
What was it called? Yin yoga?
Yin, Y-I-N. It's like not active, it's like you hold a position for like, a minute or so, but usually the teachers who teach it have been trained in kind of trauma sensitivity, so they suggest, why don't you, if it's within your capacity to move this way, they don't tell you to do anything, it's all very invitational. Yeah, it just works for me.
Yeah, and then it involves pillows and blankets.
Yeah.
Yin yoga.
It's like nap time
Pillows,
with grown-ups.
blankets. That's awesome. I also hug myself, and I've even found myself, not realizing I was doing this, holding my own hands. Like, I look down and I'm like, I'm holding my hands. I must have needed that. Like, it felt weird, but good, right? Anyone else have any calming ways?
I think that's the second time that's come up. And for me, that's a similar question, and I can so relate to that. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I had about 5 hours sleep, and anytime I have to go to the bathroom, it's like, Christ, I won't be able to get back to sleep because my brain's activated. It's like I'm wired, I'm wide awake, and I find what helps me eventually fall back to sleep, it may take an hour, is to observe my thoughts, not get enmeshed by them. Recognize, okay, I'm thinking this, I'm getting myself worked up, I'm worried. So it's like stepping back from them rather than getting enmeshed by them. So observe rather than enmesh with them. And also reassure myself. Sometimes I have to write something down because I'm fearful I'm going to forget. I find journaling helps to get it out of my mind. But not to ignore it or try to ignore it because it just makes me more anxious. So finding what works for me and also recognizing that I'm thinking something or I'm feeling something. And like a puzzle, unraveling, I'm feeling this because I'm thinking this. What can I do to help me? So how do I then parent myself in a way, how do I take care of myself in a way that is soothing and comforting and not just avoiding or neglecting? So again, it's like this inner process that's ongoing and just being able to take care of myself, saying, you got this. We're getting back in touch with my breath, my breathing, coming back to body that was mentioned earlier. So it detracts the mind, and then I'm counting my breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4 in, hold for a second, 1, 2, 3, 4 out, and that stops my brain from thinking because I'm focusing my breath, and I often fall asleep after that. So finding a technique, talk to people, find what works for others, because I bet you whatever you're struggling with, others are struggling as well, and this is a great place to ask those kinds of questions and maybe have, wall panels. I have this question people put their thoughts on, because this is a forum for sharing, and I think there's so much that we can share and learn through together, and these panels open up so many questions and open up discussion that can continue on beyond our end time, which I will now pass on because I'll never stop.
You're smiling so big though. Like this is touching, I feel your spirit happy from this. Like so, and also like whatever made you happy as a child probably will make you happy as an adult. So I've been connecting and building my relationship with my higher power, and it's very like water and beach centric. So I imagine myself playing in the sand and just feeling the textures, and that helps me to calm. So I just want to thank our panel so much. You all did amazing. David. You shared your experience, strength, and hope. You were quick on your feet with questions from the room. And just thank you so much for your service and everything you've done to help us explore this topic of inner child and reparenting. Thank you again.